everybody, I'm Amy Astro and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe below and hit the alert bell so you know when I upload new Astro related material. And yeah, welcome. This week's video is a viewer request. In fact, it was a viewer request today, and it was one since I am set up I could accomplish easily, because guess what? It is a cold night in Georgia. And do you know what cold nights mean? It means clear. And I'm on a hot streak. I'm on night number 3 as being a clear night. So, you want to know what this viewer wanted to see? Stay tuned. Alright, so some of you all are brand new to astrophotography, and it gets very confusing when you see bits and pieces of videos and you're not sure how everything glues together as one cohesive unit and how to do astrophotography. Okay, so we're going to start with, first we have our telescope set up on our equatorial mount. And I'll put a link up above for a video on how to set this up. But basically, it is leveled out. It is pointing approximately north, and I have balanced the telescope. And I have another video on how to balance your telescope, okay? So start with those. 1, how to set up your telescope. 2, how to balance your telescope. So what do I do next? Well, I am a little bit unique as my telescope is a rig setup where everything is as one piece. So it comes off the mount, everything is all together, and it stays together, which is a really great concept because I'm not the one fiddling in the middle of the night with getting all my scopes and everything aligned to each other because it's already set up. So think about that concept, and I'll throw another link that gives you an idea of what I like to do with my telescopes. But that's not what you're here for. You want to know what is next. Well, step 1 in astrophotography is remove the lens caps from your telescope and your guide scope. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to do that, and you go to take your first image and you can't figure out why it's pitch black. Well, I can almost guarantee you didn't remove the lens cap. Alright, the second thing to do is you've got your power supply here. Notice I have nothing plugged into it. I'm going to go ahead and cycle it on and let it run so the inrush current and everything is settled out, okay? Because I don't want to have my astronomical devices plugged into this unit the same time as I kick power in, because what if the voltage spikes? I could fry one of these delicate instruments, okay? So now that the power is on, I'm going to find the cable that runs up to the telescope. And as you see, it is just one cable coming off. And I use Anderson power poles for everything here, and I'm just going to plug my power in. So now my telescope rig has power. Second step, I need to turn on the mini computer that I have up here. Alright, so now the computer is on. The computer is Wi-Fi. It's hooked up to my home network, and all I need is a laptop, and I got one right here. Now I'm going to use my Mac today to talk to my PC, only because it's a stronger computer and I can do screen grabs for you and you can follow along with me. Alright, so now that I've got my PC on, I am going to leave my mount off for this first step because the next thing I need to do is my polar alignment. And I'm going to use SharpCap Pro to do that, and it prefers that I do not have the mount on. Alright, so I'm going to come over here to my Mac and I'm going to use Remote Desktop Protocol and hop over to the PC that's up top there. Now I'll go to remote desktop, and I will go to my Raven scope, which is this telescope here. And I'm just going to double click on it. I'm going to confirm that it's okay to use. And in just a second, it's going to pop up. And this that I see right now, that you're seeing on the screen, is my mini PC that's up top here. And we're going to walk through. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do polar alignment. And I do have another video. So basically, I'm telling you which videos in which order to watch here, which might drive you crazy, but we're going to get there. So let's do polar alignment and make sure everything is good. And for that, I'm going to use SharpCap, which is, it's like $10 a year for their subscription to use the Pro version. And if you ever want to get into planetary imaging, SharpCap is a great software to do that with. But what I really like it for is for polar alignment. Alright, the program is opening. And this is the first thing I do when I turn everything on, is get that polar alignment. Alright, so I'm going to call right now a fairly decent polar alignment, and I am sitting here at 9 arc seconds out of polar alignment. Now the goal in SharpCap is I want to get both lines together as close as I possibly can, but the seeing must not be that great. I am nearing a full moon, and if you noticed on the screen, it kept choosing a different star, so the atmosphere is relatively unstable. So this is probably the best I'm going to get tonight, but this should yield me a good 5 to 10 minute image without any issue. So now that my polar alignment is complete, I'm going to return this back to the upright position. And this is my park position, also known as my home position. So now that I'm polar aligned, I'm going to get out of SharpCap. I'm going to disconnect my camera and close the program. And let's see, now turn on the telescope. The mount is on, so now I can connect it to the computer. So let's go over here to, I'm using Sequence Generator Pro. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my imaging camera with Sequence Generator Pro. My filter wheel I've already got turned on. I'm going to turn on my Nightcrawler focuser. And now I'm going to turn on the mount itself using EQ mod. It's for the Skywatcher, Orion, the Cintas. And currently right now you see that it says it is parked. Now I'll come down here and I'll do unpark. And this is just my own personal thing. It's out of safety, because I've had times where the encoders forget where park is. And I'll go over here to the setup module, and with the unparked right here in the park mode at home position, I will resync my encoders to say this is my park position, and I will say OK, and I'll close that window and minimize it. Now I'll follow this little caret arrow down, and let's turn on the rotator portion of the Nightcrawler. Alright, but now I need to think about my guiding. I've got everything turned on and cooling down in Sequence Generator Pro, but I've got a couple things that I need to do. One, let's open PhD2 guiding, and what I want to do is make sure everything connects and that the guider is properly calibrated, okay? There's lots of ways to do this. It depends on which monitor I'm on, what size the screen decides to open up at. Let's go ahead and close this down just a little bit. I'm going to come over here to the connect button, and I'm using this equipment profile, which is for my 50mm guide scope and the ZWO 120 monochrome camera, and I'll say connect all, which is connecting the guide scope equipment. Alright, now we need to do a calibration, but there is actually a good spot in the sky that we want to calibrate on. So let's cheat and open up Stellarium. Now for those of you who are on hand controllers, you can do all of this with your hand controllers, okay? Alright, Stellarium's opening, and when Stellarium opens, I'm going to have to connect the mount to Stellarium. Alright, so I'm going to come over here in Stellarium to this configurations window. I'll go over here to plugins, and we will go to telescope control. And let's say configure. I'm going to my ASCOM Skywatcher, and I'm going to say connect it. So now my telescope is talking to this computer. Alright, let's minimize this and minimize this, and let's find a spot that our telescope guide setup can calibrate to, and it needs to be along the ecliptic equator, somewhere about 20 degrees to 30 degrees up. So if I come over here in the east, and I've got right here is my ecliptic equator here, it's highlighted in red, and then I come over to the side and I look for 30 degrees, which is about here, and I'm going to follow it down, and it wants to be somewhere in this vicinity. It does not have to be on the line, just has to be close. Now I think right here is gonna hit the roof of my house, so I'm gonna aim up just a little bit higher, and I'm gonna double click right there, and you notice the moon is out. It's out in full force, so I'm not exactly sure how we get, but you know what, there's another side. There's a western side. So let me scroll around here to the west and see where it lands, because it doesn't care if it's east or west. Now you notice over here it's coming down right through here, southwest to west. Now I'm going to look up in my sky, and what's really bright right now is Jupiter. Okay, so Saturn is above my tree line, but not much lower, so 30 degrees. So I'm just going to choose this area here, double click. I'm going to click on this guy right here. I thought I was going to click on that guy right there. I feel like, oh, here he is. This is what's been messing with me. He was off the side of the screen. I'm going to say I want to go to this current object, which is Saturn area that I just selected, and I'm going to say slew, and this thing should spin around, and my head's probably going to be in the way. Alright, so at least this time I'm not going to be aiming at the moon. I'm going to go towards the southwest. And that feels really low. Don't think I quite got it. But you know how I like to cheat? Let's go back to Sequence Generator Pro. And over here in the frame and focus, let me just take one image. And just make sure I don't have trees in that image. Alright, 1 5-second exposure. What am I going to get? Oh, that's not so bad. I actually got Saturn in my screen. So I'm going to go with this. We are going to calibrate PhD2 right here, which is along the ecliptic equator, about 30 degrees up, and Saturn's right here. Let's go back to PhD2. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but we'll write something out at the end that you can follow through. So our equipment is connected, and right here where it says begin looping exposure, we're going to begin looping, and there we go. And see, there's Saturn on my guide scope because I have them somewhat aligned. I'm going to auto select a star. There we go. And now, instead of starting to guide, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click it. And right down here, you see West Step. It's going to run through an auto calibration routine. So it kind of gets its bearings going on where it's at. So we're going to wait for that to happen, which could take 5 or 6 minutes. And then we'll send the telescope back to home and shut down Stellarium because I don't need it anymore. Alright, so PhD is done calibrating, and if you're watching my screen right now, it looks like heart failure mode. Let's clear that out, and let's see how it does. Hopefully these guiding lines will come together a little bit. I mean, so far not so bad. That second one, not so good. We'll just have to wait and see how it does. Now, right now, if you have any doubts about your RA, let's see, the Minmo and all these things, their manual is great. It tells you a lot of things, but there is a tool that they offer here, and it is called the Guiding Assistant. I highly recommend that you run this every now and then. Let it run for 5 to 10 minutes. Just walk away, go inside and get warm, and it will come back and calculate these numbers for you and let you know what your backlash and all that stuff is. And it's really quite handy to use. But as you see, it's starting to settle out just a little bit. I mean, this is low on the horizon. It is getting into some of the light pollution bubble. But I'm going to go ahead and stop PhD2, okay, and minimize it. So we have polar aligned. We have now calibrated our PhD2, and I did a roundabout way of getting to the ecliptic equator by using Stellarium. Now I'm going to go back to Sequence Generator Pro. And I've already got my schedule planned out today, which will be to work on the Cave Nebula again tonight and try to get some more data on it. Now, I do have another video out there that tells you how to use the, let's see, what exactly is it called? Tools and the Framing and Mosaic Wizard. I love this command. It helps me plan all of my sessions, gets the rotation right, the framing right that I really want to see. The only real downside to it is you have to be connected to the internet to do this process. So if you're going to go out to your dark space, I recommend you setting up this framing part, frame and mosaic, while you're at home to plan your session, because once you're out in the field, you're kind of SOL. There's not much you can do about it. All right, so let's get our telescope back over to home so we can start everything. I'm going to go back to my EQ mod over here, and I am going to go park. Just that simple. And I need to be parked just so I can get everything ready to go and start my session. So far so good. It's going to the right spot. And that's because I synced the encoders, and I do this every time because I have had times where it parks in all kinds of weird spots. So that's just my little peace of mind. Alright, lens caps are off, I'm connected, I'm polar aligned, my PhD2 is calibrated. Let's see, EQ mod is parked now. I'm going to unpark it so we can start things. And now, magically, let's watch this. You ready? I'm going to say run sequence. And let's just sit back and watch what happens. This is why I like using Sequence Generator Pro so much. Once you get your settings straight, it will do everything for you with a push of a button. See, right now, the telescope is slewing to where the Cave Nebula is. And the first thing it's going to want to do is, let's see. There we go. I had a cable snag. Alright, what are we going to do first? Let's minimize this so we can see. Down here it tells you everything that it's doing. Alright, we're going to go for plate solving. Now the key for plate solving is to have everything in focus. The last filter that I used last night was the luminance, and I'm set up on the luminance filter now, so focus should be within reason. It is taking a picture of the sky. It's going to plate solve it to find out where it's at, and then it's going to compare it to my frame, frame and mosaic wizard, and figure out where it's at. And right now it searched 2 regions, which is fantastic. Sometimes I'm up to 1,000 regions, so don't freak out when it goes up that high. You just got to give it time. And you can see it failed the first time, which is exactly what I expected it to do. It says my rotation angle is off by 2.8 degrees, and I'm out by 7,203 pixels. Yikes. No, really, that's normal. Not a big deal. So it's shifted everything over just a little bit. It rotated the camera just a little bit, and now it's taking another picture and it's plate solving. It found it in one region, which is even better. And let's see what it looks like for error. Okay, it failed again, but it failed because it's 43 pixels. I have a tolerance of 40 pixels set up, which is really crazy, and I've got a tolerance of 2 degrees set up on my rotator. And I've done that only because that thing is so accurate and the gears are so tight on it that it's not that hard to do. Alright, so I bet you by this image, it's going to be plate solved. Alright, that was it, just that quick. So now it's going to resume the auto guider. Let's go take a peek. It's running the focusing routine, where it takes the focus that I had last time and it bumps it out 3 spots and it takes a picture. And then it bumps it in, takes another picture, bumps it in, and takes another picture. And then it goes past where focus is. And it starts, you want to get this really nice V shape. And that just shows that it has found focus for you. And this will take maybe 3 or 4 minutes to happen. Well, folks, this is about when everything went crazy last night, as in my light died and my microphone died. So I've had to purchase a new microphone to complete this video. So I apologize for that. But the good news is everything worked out great. Once the timer counted down to, I think I had it set at a 3-minute image, it took the image, and I'm going to show you the image, and everything turned out great. So the basic steps that we followed were we set up our telescope mount, we balanced our telescope on our mount, we then turned on the power supply, but we made sure that our gear was not attached to the power supply because we didn't want to damage anything with any potential inrush, voltage that comes in. So once we did those, we did polar alignment, and I used Sharp Cap to accomplish that. After that, we went back to Sequence Generator Pro, and I turned on the cameras and checked everything out. Went from there, went to PhD2, where I made sure that I had my equipment profile set up. I connected the camera and the mount, and then we popped back in and we calibrated our PhD2. Now we have to do that at a specific location in the sky, and it's about 30 to 40 degrees up along the ecliptic equator. Okay, I use Stellarium to help me get to that particular location, because it's not really as easy as saying, okay, go to get something in the east, get something in the west, because the equator shifts throughout the year for us. So it could be more northwest or northeast, or it's just something a little bit different. So I always use Stellarium to help me get there. Once I'm there, I calibrate PhD2, and you probably notice off on the side you could see the star moving up, down, right, left, and that's where it was just getting its bearings on the sky and seeing how far the star drifted off of the axis and everything. Once that was done, we popped over to Sequence Generator Pro. I made sure all my equipment was turned on, the camera was cool, and I just said run. And since I already had my target lined up, it slewed the camera over to that location. It did some plate solving. Sorry, I've got a cat on my computer screen, and well, on my keyboard here. But it slewed the telescope over to the location in the sky. It did some plate solving where it took a picture and it figured out where it was versus where I want it to be, and then it moved the mount until I got to that specific location, which worked out really well. Sometimes it does take me searching 1,000 areas. Sometimes it takes just 2 or 3. It just depends on basically the mood of the sky. So it did that. It ran through its focus routine, and then it started taking pictures. Everything worked out great. So that's the basic order of everything that I did. This is based on my system, which I use a rig style with a mini PC mounted on the telescope. And you can do about the same steps if you're just dealing with a laptop and you have all your cables coming off. It's just you don't need the remote desktop software that I needed to get everything to work. Well, I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I enjoyed making it. It got a little bit cold outside, so I had to go inside and add some more clothes because it was surprisingly chilly. It's taken me about a week to get this video edited thanks to the goof of having my microphone die on me. But that shouldn't happen in the future because I do have a new one coming in, and hopefully it'll be here real soon. Well, let's see. Oh, just on some good personal news I wanted to share. And I know this is probably kind of silly, you guys don't care about this stuff, but my son is about to graduate from college. He'll graduate this next week. I am incredibly, incredibly proud of him. He is the first of our family to graduate from college. So I'm really proud of him. He'll have a communications degree with a film minor, with dreams of being the next Steven Spielberg. I can only hope for the best for him because he really, really is good with videography. Great news is he already has a job, so that says something for you when you have a job when you graduate. I'm incredibly proud of him. Well guys, that's all I got for you this week. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. I wish you guys some great health, some clear skies, and I will see y'all real soon. Goodbye.